Knowing the mechanics to a raid is important, but if you really want to feel like a god in front of your friends, clannies, and those arrogant know-what-to-do LFG teams, then you need these secret Crota's End raid tips that will have those aforementioned groups calling you a genius. And I'm so confident that you'll learn a ton of new stuff in this guide that'll make you a deal. If you learn something new, you hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you don't, then come to my live stream and let me know, in which case I'll owe you a gifted sub. So let's get to it. Before we talk secret tips though, we have to go through a quick walkthrough of the base mechanic of the raid. If you already know all of the base mechanics and want to skip straight to the secret tips, head to the timestamp in the video. Everything revolves around the Chalice of Light, which looks like this on the ground and this when a player is carrying it. While holding onto the chalice, you'll have a meter that slowly fills, receiving a 10-second debuff called Engulfed in Light once full, that will kill you unless a teammate grabs the chalice off of you. Having the chalice stripped from you while in possession of this Engulfed in Light debuff will leave you with the Enlightened buff. This buff can be exchanged to do many things in the raid, such as activating lanterns, picking up swords, entering high barriers, dealing a burst of damage to bosses, and deactivating the Oversoul. While in possession of the Enlightened buff, you will be unable to pick up or take the chalice from another player, and when you lose your Enlightened buff through one of the previously mentioned means, you will receive the Drained of Light debuff for 45 seconds, also preventing you from picking up or taking the chalice. The only other way to get rid of the chalice without having a teammate take it, or by dying, is by depositing it into one of the preservation podiums, from which any teammate without Enlightened or Drained of Light can come pick up at any time. Worth noting that depositing it into one of these podiums will always give you the Drained of Light debuff for 45 seconds, regardless of your buff bar progress. Every single encounter in the raid revolves around the chalice, so understanding all of the chalice mechanics basically means that you understand the whole raid. With that knowledge established, let's go through these top secret tips. Kicking things off with the simple stuff, we've got the Relic Sword Heavy Super Cancel. This relic might not seem that useful for anything other than smacking Crota's shield, but it is actually super strong for wiping out adds such as the ogres, wizards, and boomer knights. This is because it not only has an insanely fast charging super, but also has a way to combo it really nicely with the heavy attack. Simply use the heavy attack on the sword, then the second that you see the hit land, immediately hit the super button to animation cancel the cooldown of the heavy attack by initiating a follow-up from the super right away. This is crucial for one-shotting anything in the Crota encounter, smacking those Gatekeepers in the bridge encounter, and nuking Crota's shield. Sticking with the sword, let's talk abilities. Unfortunately, you can't use any class ability while holding the sword, as doing so will immediately force you to drop it, where you'll be unable to pick it back up without first acquiring a new Enlightened buff. However, while holding the sword, you can still utilize a ton of Guardian abilities, such as any grenade, melee-based dive abilities like Quick Fall, and for whatever reason, Phoenix Dive, and even some movement tools like Icarus Dash. It's worth noting, however, that any class ability-based movement tool aside from Phoenix Dive will drop the sword, such as Thruster on Titan and the Strand Dive on Hunter. Now, getting to one of my favorite tips on this list, we have Abyss Pathing. I'm not gonna lie, this encounter is the LFG killer if I've ever seen one, if for no reason other than the fact that the pendulums and their nonsensical hitboxes are going to break the will of even the strongest player. But as with all things, there is a way around them. In this case, literally. In this encounter, there is absolutely no reason that you need to go directly from one lantern to the next, crossing the field of pendulums as you bunny hop along. Instead, just work your way around the rocks that encourage you to stay in the pendulum-infested lanes, to take a crescent-shaped route from lantern to lantern. In doing so, you can basically avoid every pendulum in this encounter without missing a single lantern or chalice preservation podium. Just remember that slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. For our next tip, at the risk of being a little cheeky, I'll admit, it genuinely does help to have higher frame rates and a high-performing gaming system when raiding. So let's talk about a setup upgrade that you deserve. When I was a console gamer, I thought PCs were just a fad, but after 10 years of gaming on one, I have never looked back. With a PC, you just get way more storage space, significantly higher frame rates, and much better performance. So why not treat yourself to a Starforged system, the best PCs in the universe, built at premium quality and with a full 2-year warranty. Head to my link in the description to go buy yours now so you can thank yourself later. Now, one of the most annoying things in this raid are the Gatekeepers that are immune to everything but high Relic Sword damage, but since they are just mini boss tier enemies, there are a few ways to turn them into literal practice dummies. These include Strand Suspend, Stasis Freeze, or my personal favorite, a Blinding Grenade Launcher, or Disorienting Grenade Launcher, whatever. You knew what I meant. Furthermore, with the use of these shutdown utility weapons and abilities, you don't even need a sword to kill the knights. Just carefully guide them to a nice cozy ledge and give them a gentle nudge.
Don't. There you go, there you go, there you go.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I'm farting.
This is so dumb.
Get rid of the crystal.
This one's frozen. Go, 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 go.
Oh my god.
No way that works, no way that worked, no way that worked, no way that works.
There's no way.
But what happens if you have someone come over and fail to deposit the sword? Whether it's because they accidentally dropped it or died while fighting the sword bear. Well, once you have all 6 players on the finishing side of the bridge encounter, the sword bearer will actually spawn on that same side with you, allowing you to continue to get more swords to finish up. Moving on to boss encounters, we start off with a tip that is a little more cheese than it is an actual piece of advice, but no matter. As you begin the Ear Ute encounter, you can actually jump up to the ceiling and grab the chalice through the floor before you even begin to kill any enemies. This of course allows you to pass around the chalice far in advance and in a much more controlled environment to have everyone enlightened before wizard killing time comes. And speaking of wizard killing time, it can be really difficult to identify whether a room has a Shrieker or a wizard in it, specifically in those tower rooms in the back of the map. One option is to use a Wish Ender to wall hack your way to identifying what's in there, but that requires the sacrifice of your exotic slot, which will ultimately harm your DPS phase. Luckily for you, I have another way. Looking at your radar while close to the doors of the rooms, enemy targets will appear as red cones, as you know. However, Shriekers, due to their in-game classification as vehicles, will actually appear as red circles when close enough. Furthermore, these circles will also have an arrow inside of them, either pointing up or down, indicating their elevation in relation to your current position. So, for example, if you are up against a door of the top room in one of the towers, and you see a circle with a downward pointing arrow in it, then you know there is a Shrieker below your current position, aka in the bottom room. Whereas if that arrow is pointing up, then you know it is above your current position, i.e. the upper room. Just remember that Shriekers are levitating enemies, so if you're looking from the ground and see an up arrow, that doesn't automatically mean it's in the upper room, simply above your current position. So always stand on the balcony of the upper floor when using this method to reliably tie the position of the Shrieker to the arrow on the radar. Next up, we have a tip that more than 70% of you can use by scrolling down just a little bit and hitting those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, so I can continue to show you everything that you need to know to become a monster in Destiny. Thanks for the support in advance if you choose to do so. Now, looking at damaging Crota's shield with a sword, the most reliable combo is one that utilizes the sword heavy super cancel trick from earlier, where you'll be able to do a heavy, super heavy combo to drop Crota's shield to about 33% HP with just one sword. This combo is super easy to execute, insanely reliable, and should be the go-to for 99% of squads. And while there are combos that can one-sword Crota's shield, I honestly wouldn't recommend them as they require near frame perfect combos and a bit of luck as well. This is because despite what every single person on the internet seems to think, buffs and debuffs do not work against Crota's shield or the Hive Sword relic damage. I tested Star Eater scales, arc weapon surges, kinetic weapon surges, Banner of War, Radiant, Lumina, Well of Radiance, Weaken, and Tether, and absolutely none of them made a single difference. I even tried that goofy thing people told me to try where you jump super high in the air to get bonus damage on the sword, and actually ended up hitting for like 1,000 less, so no clue who came up with that one. The only thing that actually makes sense to use for dealing more damage to Crota is Tractor Cannon, which does 100% for a fact work. Divinity might work too, but I didn't test it because, let's be real, you're way better off with Tractor here anyway. But what about once you have that shield down, given that close range damage options are the best despite Crota's reputation for breaking Well of Radiances and leaving you unsafe? Well, there are a few options that we have here. The first is a Burning Maul Titan super that is delicately spaced out to last the whole DPS phase, resulting in an everlasting fire cyclone that will permanently stun lock Crota. Alternatively, you can have some permanent healing options that he won't be able to hit through, like a Banner of War aura or some Sunspot healing thanks to a combination of Hammer of Soul and Phoenix Cradle. And if worse comes to worse, you can always have one Strand player apply a Sever debuff to cut Crota's damage by 40%, and turning his sword into more of a glorified pool noodle. And if you need more advice or help with Crota's End, or are even looking for help with a run directly, stop by my stream at twitch.tv/Mactics, and we'll take care of you over there. I'll see you in the stream. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.